What is a non-negotiable piece of advice on health that I would give to my younger self if I could go back in time and tell young 18-year-old Saad this piece of advice? And I thought about that, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I would say the one piece of advice that I would give to my younger self, or to any young person today, or to really any person, I would say, make sure you get 8 hours of sleep at night, and that's non-negotiable. Every night, 8 hours. And I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather used to have a phrase before he would go off to do some, seriously hard work. He's like, I'll have enough time to sleep when I'm dead. And then in the military, we used to say that's a similar version of that phrase in the U.S. Navy. Let's get to work. We'll have plenty of time to sleep when we're dead. Or after a long day's work on the ship, we'd all want to go out to the bar, to do some type of activity. And be like, oh man, we're only going to have a couple hours of sleep before we have to go work tomorrow. And you'd be like, we get plenty of time to sleep when we're dead. And the problem with that is if you neglect your sleep, you are going to reach that state of eternal sleep a lot sooner than you planned. And the irony that I found is that although I'm 55 years old, I'm probably healthier today than at any time in my life, including when I was in my 20s in the Navy. Of course, I was younger. I was, more physically gifted. But back then, I didn't think about sleep. I would operate on 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night and think, I could push through it, as if sleep was a luxury. But the problem is lack of sleep, not getting your 8 hours. Some of the associated effects: depression, cardiovascular disease, memory loss, fail to retain learned material, dementia, significantly lower testosterone, almost by 10 years. The difference between a male that gets 8 hours of sleep a night and a male that gets 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night is almost a 10-year difference. It's almost ages you like 10 years in testosterone levels. You're more prone to disease because you're immune compromised. Weight gain, anxiety, depression. The adverse effects of lack of sleep are simply devastating. Matter of fact, if you look at the Guinness Book of World Records, they have world records for all kinds of incredibly dangerous feats, from walking on planes to swimming underwater with sharks, dodging spears, walking on nails, free diving from incredible distances. All kinds of just incredibly dangerous world records, speed on cars that they track. But the one thing that they do not track, because it is so dangerous, is there is no world record that they track for sleep deprivation. Like, a person going a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever, without sleep. They don't track that world record because it is so dangerous and so physically harmful to the person doing it that they in no way want to encourage you to do that. Like, they're encouraging you to do all kinds of dangerous stuff, but sleep deprivation is a step too far. They won't go that far. So that's how important sleep is. So it's not optional. It's a non-negotiable biological function that you have to do to survive. And you could see it, if it wasn't so important, you would see it in the animal kingdom. Like, animals know that they're most vulnerable when they're asleep. And of course, they're not productive while they're asleep. But animals sleep anyways, whether it's wolves, coyotes, deer. They sleep anyways because they have to. So even though they're at the most vulnerable and least productive, they still sleep because it's an absolute necessity. You have to get sleep. So if I could go back in time and advise a younger Saad, or advise any person, that one piece of advice to improve your physical health and your mental health would be to make sure you get 8 hours of sleep. And the recommended time for sleep for children is 9 to 10. So look at your kids. Are they getting enough sleep? Chances are they're not. And when I talk about sleep, I'm not talking about like some kind of lazy sleep, like you just stayed in bed all day watching TV. No, I'm talking about you're not watching TV. You're not staring at your phone. You're in bed asleep 8 hours a day. That should be your standard, your non-negotiable daily standard. And avoid things before sleep. Before your regular bedtime, avoid things like caffeine, alcohol, screen time, looking at your TV or your phone. These are all things that will hinder your sleep. So you want to get a good 8 hours of deep sleep every night. And that is the one thing that will dramatically improve your health. And if there was one thing I could go back and tell a young 18-year-old Saad, I would tell him, get 8 hours of sleep every night, non-negotiable, and it will make a world of difference. And one tip to show like our memory aid is we used to do it with our kids. If you wanted them to learn their phone number or their house address before they go to sleep at night, just have them repeat it several times, your phone number, just work it with them. And then let them go to sleep. And then in the morning, when they wake up, ask them their phone number. And you'll be surprised, they will know it. Sleep is almost like a save button for memory. So if you want to learn something really important, go over it several times before you doze off. And then when you wake up in the morning, check your memory retention, and you will be pleasantly surprised. All right, that's the answer for this week's question of the week. Got a question for next week? Feel free to fire below. And any inputs, opinions, advice, agreements, disagreements with what I've said here, feel free to share below, and we'll all learn and grow from it. Until next week, ciao.